today we'll be looking at a football team that has not only been through heartbreak but also extraordinary times. That team is of course Derby County. And where better to start than right at the beginning.
Derby County was founded in 1884 by William Morley and are notable for being one of the 12 founding members of the Football League in 1888. The first notable player came from this era, and his name was Steve Bloomer, who to this day Derby fans still sing about.
Steve Bloomer's watching, helping and fight, guiding our heroes in the black and the white.
Derby County have always played in black and white and have always used the ram as their symbol since 1924. We spoke to an avid Derby fan and asked him some questions. What is your name and what year did you start watching Derby County?
Hello, my name's Ian Parrott and I've been supporting Derby County since the mid-70s.
What were some of the best games you've ever been to?
Well, if I think back to the baseball ground, I remember a night match against Liverpool back in the day in the old First Division, which of course is now the Premiership. And we actually beat Liverpool 4-2. A few years later, but not so long ago, I think of beating Nottingham Forest 5-0 at Pride Park. That was absolutely mental. It was fantastic. And to beat your rivals as well, it's great, and some fantastic goals. And I think of Johnny Russell's goal.
Russell takes it on.
An important part of Derby County is the rivalries between other teams. The main rivalry is with Nottingham Forest. This is known as the East Midland Derby because of their geography. Derby and Nottingham are only separated by one road that is named Brian Clough Way on the A52, named after the legendary manager that managed both teams during his career. Derby and Nottingham now fight for the Brian Clough Trophy.
Tell me a bit about the rivalry between Nottingham Forest and Derby County.
Well, it's the real East Midlands derby. It's massive. The bragging rights for the East Midlands, the A52.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Another famous rivalry is with the Yorkshire team Leeds United. This all started because in the 1970s, when Leeds were one of the best teams in England, Derby played them. The manager of Leeds at the time, Dom Revie, showed complete disrespect to Brian Clough by not shaking his hand. This and the fact that Leeds played very violently created a rivalry between Dom Revie and Brian Clough, which eventually found its way to the fans being rivals with each other. Derby County have had two main stadiums over the years. The first was the baseball ground, which was in use from 1895 to 1997 and was renowned for its great atmosphere. The baseball ground could hold 42,000 fans.
It's May 1997 and Rams fans are making their way down Cambridge Street one last time for the last ever league game at the historic ground. The concluding chapter in a story of cheers, tears and drama spanning 102 glorious years.
The other is Pride Park, which Derby have used from 1997 to the present and can hold 33,000 fans. Pride Park was renamed the iPro Stadium in 2013 but was reverted in 2017 back to Pride Park. The most famous man to ever grace Derby County is a man named Brian Clough, who is both a legend at Derby County but also at Nottingham Forest. Brian Clough and Peter Taylor managed Derby between 1967 and 1973 and were responsible for the glory days of this team. Derby were promoted to the First Division in 1969 under these two. In the next year they finished fourth but were banned from playing in Europe due to financial irregularities. In 1972 they won the First Division and won Derby's first ever Football League Championship. In the next year, Derby got to the European Cup semi-final but were beaten by Juventus. This was when Brian Clough decided to speak up about the cheating and match fixing in football. This was so controversial that it ended up getting him in trouble with the Derby board and eventually got him sacked. We spoke to Ian Parrott about Brian Clough.